The LA Kings are still trying to figure it out at home, and so is backup goalie Pheonix Copley. We discussed that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're also on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. Well, the LA Kings follow up their biggest win of the season with a loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Of course, they beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1 on Wednesday and then lose Thursday night to the Pittsburgh Penguins by a score of 4-3 in overtime. The good news, the Kings do pick up a point and extend their point streak to 8 games in a row. The bad news, the Kings are still not clicking on home ice. LA 7-0 on the road, but now 1-2-3 at Crypto.com Arena this season. We'll get into what we liked and didn't like from the game. But first, if you didn't see the game, give you a quick recap. And unfortunately, in this one, LA would fall behind in the first period when Pittsburgh future Hall of Famer Sidney Crosby scored on a wraparound goal. Kings would then tie it up on a shorthanded goal from Carl Grundstrom. Great play by the captain, Andrei Kopitar. Found Grundstrom all alone coming down the ice, taking advantage of a poorly timed line change by the Penguins. Second period, LA would take a 2-1 lead. Beautiful wrist shot from Adrian Kempe, who's starting to heat up. Pittsburgh, though, would respond with their own shorthanded goal. LA's Kevin Fiala turned the puck over, and the Penguins' Lars Eller would take advantage, skating the puck into the LA end and scoring on a wrist shot to tie it up at 2-2. Third period, Sidney Crosby would strike again, this time with a beautiful pass right on the tape of his teammate Jake Gensel for a tap-in goal, the back door. LA, though, would respond. Kings defenseman Jordan Spence would take a shot and deflect it off a Pittsburgh player on net. Pierre-Luc Dubois was there for the rebound. That was saved, but then Kevin Fiala followed that save up on the rebound with a putback of his own, and we were tied at 3-3. The game would go overtime where the Penguins would score twice. Brian Rust had a game-winning goal overturned on an offside, but Rust would score the eventual overtime game winner anyway on another wraparound, and this one would count, and the Penguins get the 4-3 overtime victory. As for the game stats, the Kings outshot the Penguins 36-20. While neither team scored on the power play, LA 0-3, Pittsburgh 0-2. Each team did have a shorthanded goal, and the two teams were dead even in faceoffs, winning 28 apiece. Penguins out-hit the Kings 25-19 and had more block shots, 16-13. Did the Kings play a bad game? No, I don't think they were bad. Certainly not good enough or as good as we know they can be, judging by how they played against Vegas. And I know some are using the narrative of, well, the Kings are playing on back-to-back nights, one road game, one home game. So it's not unreasonable for the Kings to not play their A game. And I guess it's not unreasonable. But personally, I think sometimes you can look for excuses if you want to find them. But I think for the most part, the Kings played well. They were not opportunistic like they were in Vegas, and they got beat. It happens. Pittsburgh is still, if they're not an elite team, they have some elite talent. If you thought Sidney Crosby was not on his game anymore because now he's gotten a lot older, that was not the case against the Kings. Crosby was a beast. I thought he was unbelievable. And they still have a very, very talented roster. They've got some goalie issues and maybe not great defensively, but offensively, this is a team that can still score. That said, I have to say it was a disappointing loss. Disappointing that the Kings didn't follow up their biggest win of the year with another win and carry momentum over from that. It is a bit concerning that they continue to not play great on home ice as they are on the road. And it is still a question mark if goalie Pheonix Copley can be relied upon to give the Kings the effort they need in net and to give Cam Talbot the rest he's going to need down the stretch in the season. I thought Copley was kind of like the Kings, not terrible, but just not good enough. Two of the Penguins' 4 goals I thought were great plays by a great player. We talked about Sidney Crosby with the wraparound goal and then the great pass for the tap-in goal. The other 2 goals, I mean, you have to wonder, I guess the other 3 goals, you have to wonder if Cam Talbot could have made those saves instead. So I would say the jury is still out right now on Pheonix Copley. The other 2 goals, I was correct right the first time. I think the jury's still out on Pheonix Copley as well. If he's going to be the reliable number 2 goalie that the Kings are looking for. So I don't think this start was bad enough that you say, okay, that's it. Let's bring up David Rittich and give him a try. I also don't think it was good enough to say, okay, we're going to be okay when Cam Talbot has the night off. I think we're still in the same boat we were in going into the game, just not really sure if Pheonix Copley is going to be able to get the job done or not this year. So as we do after every game, what did we like? What did we not like? Well, I thought Quentin Byfield was great. He didn't have a point, but he was close so many times. He could have scored multiple goals in that game and just was a little bit snake bit. I think he had one go off the post. He had some good looks, but I still love his aggressiveness. I think his decision-making is getting better. I love seeing him develop. We just need to see him get a little bit more as far as the results go to get his confidence going. But I thought he was all over the ice last night. Carl Grundstrom's playing really well also. He's been flying all around, strong forechecks, leading to aggressive play and getting a goal last night for the Kings. And like I said, the Kings, it wasn't like they were bad really as a team, but there were some moments where they weren't at their best and it ended up costing them. How about Andreas Englund? Hit of the year, maybe in the NHL, certainly for the LA Kings. He absolutely plastered the Penguins' Radim Zohorna with a body check that saw Zohorna go flying head over heels. His stick helicoptered into the air, and it drew oohs and ahs from everybody watching. That was an amazing hit from Andreas Englund, and he's really the only one on the roster that provides that kind of physicality, and that was a great hit. Certainly liked seeing that. If that's going to be in the highlights, that's going to be in the scouting report for other teams. They'll have to keep their head up and pay attention when he's on the ice. And of course, Anze Kopitar continues to be who he is. Picked up another assist. He passes Luc Robitaille for sole possession of second in points in franchise history. 1,155 career points now for the captain. Kopitar also gets his 755th career assist. He's 2 assists away from tying Marcel Dion for the most assists in franchise history. So what did we not like? Well, obviously not getting the job done again on home ice. I don't know that there's a real rhyme or reason for it. Sometimes, you look at being on home ice, you get the last change, but the way the Kings are rolling out 4 lines consistently, I don't know that matters home or road. And sometimes this just happens. Hopefully it turns around, but you see this with a few teams every year, and it's either home or road. They're either really, really good at home and not good on the road, or vice versa. And there's no real rhyme or reason for it. I don't know if that's the case with the Kings yet. They are at least getting some points at home, but got to be better. Hopefully that can start in the next home game coming up on Saturday against the Flyers. The Kings don't like to play beyond regulation. They've got 5 losses this season. 3 of them have come either in overtime or in a shootout. Kevin Fiala is one of those guys that sometimes can drive you crazy. He is obviously very talented, and he's got a lot of points this year. He did get a goal in this one, but whether it's taking those dumb penalties on occasion or in this case, just making a really bad turnover and then not getting back defensively, he gave a half-hearted kind of flyby on Lars Eller, who ended up scoring. That's not good enough. Kevin Fiala is better than that. He's getting paid to not do those kinds of things. And I appreciate that he did come back and score a goal to tie it and help the Kings get a point. But those types of efforts, he's just a way better player than that. And of course, Pheonix Copley, still not sure about Pheonix Copley. We went in with questions, and those questions still remain at this point. So the Kings will attempt to get a much needed home win on Saturday as the Philadelphia Flyers come to town, as I just mentioned. Now they beat Philadelphia on the road last Saturday, 5-0. Flyers have lost 5 of their last games coming in. That includes a 2-1 loss to the lowly Sharks the other night, and they are going to be playing on back-to-back nights. The Flyers are in Anaheim tonight to take on the Ducks, and then they'll play the Kings back-to-back nights in LA on Saturday. Their number 1 goalie, Carter Hart, is still out due to injury, so it's possible we could see Cal Peterson again, who the Kings beat last Saturday, or more likely, I would think it would be the other goaltender, Samuel Ersson, who is a young goaltender for the Flyers. He was their number 2 goalie when Carter Hart was healthy. By the way, I will be at the game against the Flyers on Saturday. If we have any fans that want to meet up, I would be more than happy to say hello. And the Kings host the Philadelphia Flyers Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search LA Kings. All right, it is a fan feedback Friday, so let's get to some of your emails here in just a second on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. And they invite you and many of the entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling 203-675-0071. That's 203-675-0071. Or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. And if you run a solo business, you are an army of one, but you still need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. Collective is the #1 financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs that lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. Let Collective handle all the paperwork that you dread, like corporate formation and compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. The best part, it's a fraction of the cost of a CPA. Collective knows that if your business of one makes over $80,000 a year, you will find that most value come from their services. Join the thousands of solopreneurs who have saved an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering a 1 month free and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. As I said, it is a fan feedback Friday, so let's get some of your emails. This first one comes from Rob in Westchester. He says, a couple of weeks back, I sent you an email lamenting the lost opportunity for a goalie like Connor Hellebuck and expressed my concern about both Pheonix Copley and Cam Talbot. Well, I'm strong enough to admit when I'm wrong, and you were right. Cam Talbot is at least a good enough goaltender and seems like he is motivated to be better than just good enough. I was happy to see him rise to the occasion and play so consistently in goal, considering how relatively old he is. And it is probably unwise to push him past the 50-game mark during the regular season. Do you think Copley can find his game and be a solid 1B goalie? One further question, what was the one thing you like better about hockey in New York City than you like in LA? Keep up the great work, and as always, go Kings go. All right, thank you for that, Rob. As we've mentioned, still the jury is still out on Pheonix Copley, but I think we can all be very encouraged by what Cam Talbot is doing. I mean, there's still time to figure out if Pheonix is going to be the guy. And I don't think last year was a fluke. I don't think you have a full season of being good enough. I don't know what the issue is with him this season, but there's still a little bit of time for him to try and figure out, and hopefully he does. As for something I liked about hockey in New York City rather than LA, and as you probably know, I just got back from vacation in New York City. I would say I did like Madison Square Garden better than Crypto.com Arena, but I mean, that I think kind of goes without saying. It is, I think, the oldest arena in the NHL, but it has been remodeled, so it doesn't seem like it's that old. But it's more intimate. It doesn't have all the luxury boxes like Crypto.com Arena, so there's more history to that building. So if there was one thing I would say I liked better about seeing a game in New York City than LA, it would be that Madison Square Garden was a pretty cool venue. Our next email comes from Lowell. He's in Palmdale. He says, the last few seasons, we've had a good road record, but I was wondering, do you think the Kings' road record is so good to start because of the Australia trip? Like it prepared them a little bit more than usual in the preseason. Thanks for everything you do. Love the show and love the Kings. Thank you for that, Lowell. I think there could be something to that. I know the one thing that, there were pluses and minuses about that Australia trip, but the one thing they said over and over about benefits was team building. And that I think that could play a role in why the Kings are doing so well on the road. It makes sense that that could be a part of it. Our next email comes from Chris. He is in Northern Nevada, Carson City to be exact. He says, boy, the Kings continue to look impressive on the road. You can see this team has skill, they have effort, and they have a system that makes them hard to match up against by the opposition. I'm really liking the penalty kill. It seems like they are forcing the opponents to make a play by being aggressive instead of sitting back in a box or a diamond formation and hoping the other team makes a mistake. You can see that this team has a confidence in their ability, and it's all in 4 lines. Let's see if this will carry over to our home games. On another note, I love the Gavrikov dance after wins. I couldn't help but laugh seeing Cam Talbot dancing in his goalie pads after the Vegas game. Literally laughed out loud. I think little things like this are big for team chemistry and great for us fans to see more of the players' personalities. Lastly, I know that this is a Kings podcast, but how was the atmosphere inside the Garden last week at the Rangers game? How does it compare to the Kings home game? Love the content every day. Thanks again, and still putting out episodes even when you're on vacation. Well, Chris, thank you for that. Yeah, I do agree that silly little things like that can be part of the fun of being on a team, and it was cool to see the victory dance. Hope we see it more often, as I said. As far as the New York thing, like I said, I really didn't think, as far as the atmosphere in New York or compared to LA, I really didn't think it was much different, and I was surprised by that. Honestly, I was thinking it would be, I don't know, more passionate. You talk about New Yorkers and their passion for hockey and, being an original 6 franchise and all that kind of stuff. I honestly thought it was very, very similar to Los Angeles. They cheered when there was something to cheer about, just like Kings fans do. But when there wasn't, a lot of action to cheer about, they pretty much just kind of sat and watched. They have the "Let's Go Rangers" chant, like we have the "Go Kings Go" chant. That they, every once in a while, somebody will start it and they'll do that. But I thought it was really similar. I really did. I thought watching a game in New York very similar to watching a game in Los Angeles. And our final email comes from Evan in Austin. I assume Austin, Texas. He says, I love Copley. He saved last season and has a great story, but I'm getting worried about keeping him on the roster. Copley's high danger save percentage is at .55, up from .33 before the Penguins game, and his mid danger percentage is at .76. That's very close to the bottom of the league in both stats. If these numbers continue, I'm not sure he should stay in the league past a few more games. He's unfortunately underperformed in both the regular season and preseason. I trusted him coming into the season, but now I hold my breath every time he starts. Evan, I think we all share your concern. I don't know the stats you're referring to. I'm not questioning them in any way. I'm just not a big, stat guy as far as, the analytics. But I think whether you are a stats guy or you go by the eye test like I do, yes, I think we're all concerned about Pheonix Copley. As you said, we loved his story last year. He's a great guy, and we're all rooting for him to get this straightened out. But right now, look, this is a team that thinks of itself as a cup contender, and they're going to need a number 2 goalie to be able to pull his own weight. And so far, that hasn't happened. Hopefully, that will change in the near future. We do have some YouTube comments to get to. We will do that here next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I, and we get fired up about wins and losses, who starts and who sits, and I'm thankful for the connection that we have, and perhaps you feel a bit more comfortable with me telling you about something that maybe is of a personal nature. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend, thanks to our partners at Jace Medical. Life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics like Cialis, Viagra, and Revatio. Go right now at jacemedical.com and receive your 12-month supply on your daily medications. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace, quote, I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half. I ordered most of my daily meds with a 1-year supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. End quote. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind like that and have a year supply of any daily meds, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember, use the promo code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. The LA Kings host the Philadelphia Flyers Saturday, 7:30 Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Let's check in on a few of the YouTube comments. This one comes from Dominic Ephraim 3088. He says, I love that the lineup has stayed the same for a while. The entire lineup was almost exactly as I predicted over the summer. Obviously, I didn't see LaFerriere making the roster ahead of Jared Anderson-Dolan in case of injury. I didn't see RV going on long-term injured reserve, but I was pretty close. I also had Bjornfoot ahead of England, but it makes sense now with Bjornfoot as the 7th. England's 5 years older than Bjornfoot, who's only 22. We still have years to develop Bjornfoot. This is the first season where nearly everyone matched my summer depth chart. I believe the reason LA is pretty consistent through all 4 lines, all Corsi positive, is because everyone is in their proper positions in the lineup. And there's no question that is a big reason for the Kings' success so far this year. Rolling out those 4 lines, keeping the same lineup. I think for 11 games in a row now, the Kings have had the exact same forward lines and defensive pairs, and that is very rare. It's great to see that the team has stayed healthy. They've certainly got good chemistry going on. Even if one of the lines is not necessarily pulling their weight, one of the other lines is stepping up and getting contributions from everyone. I would say, we talked about going into the season, there weren't going to be a lot of roster spots that were up for grabs. I'm with you. Obviously, we did not see LaFerriere coming in. We didn't know Arvidsson was going to get hurt. And I was with you. I thought it would be Tobias Bjornfoot on the left side on the third pairing with either Brandt Clark or Jordan Spence. But England he's won the job, he's earned the job, and he continues to do positive things. He's not a liability defensively. Obviously, he's not going to give you anything offensively, but that big hit he had against Pittsburgh, that was awesome. And like I said, I think other teams, they see the highlights, they see the tape, and they store that in their mind. But got to watch out for this number 5 guy. And it's good to have one of those guys on the team, and it's good to have him, not be a liability. He's played a good job. He's done a good job, and I think he's definitely been one of the big surprises for me for the LA Kings. More on that from Ricky Hazel 1030. He says, it seems like LA's D is rounding into form. I'd love to see Bjornfoot get some more time, but how do you take England out? He's been solid, nothing flashy, but more than just physical, actually solid defensively. I'm not surprised by Talbot's play. He's been as expected. Copley definitely needs to be better, but LA's D playing better should help. I do feel bad for Cal Peterson. Thought he played well for Philadelphia. A couple of tips, 2 wicked shots, and 1 through heavy traffic. Not on him. And hey, props to Sean Walker. I thought he played well in the game. And in 20 minutes played in a 5-0 loss, to be on the plus really confirms that I always liked those guys. So talking about the Kings taking on Philadelphia and facing a couple of former Kings. Yeah, like I said, there was a time when I was like, get Bjornfoot in there, give him some time in case you need him. But like you said, how do you take England out? He's earned it. He's playing well, and there's no reason really to take him out. I know at some point you probably want to get Jared Anderson-Dolan and Tobias Bjornfoot in there just to give them knock the rust off a little bit. And I'm sure it's not fun for them to not be able to play. I did see that JAD, I guess, is going to go to Ontario for a couple of games to get some work in and then come back to play for the Kings here in the little bit as he can go up and down. But I think Andreas Englund, like I said, been a big surprise and doing a good job. This comes from Chris Simmons 9743. He says, honestly, the fact that we've seen Talbot play well enough for a team to succeed if the players in front of him can make his job easier so he doesn't have to be on the level of a Martin Brodeur, Igor Shesterkin, or even Jonathan Quick at his prime, is the main reason why this season is so far, at least, the least concerned I've been about goaltending since I started watching the NHL in the 2018-19 season. We've seen him play like a starting caliber goalie in Minnesota before the team betrayed him in favor of the sexier option in Marc-Andre Fleury, and the rest of this Kings team is good enough that if Talbot can play like he did during the best times in Minnesota, this team will be the main obstacle to the Golden Knights repeating as champs and maybe even replace the poor, pathetic, pitiful Sharks as Vegas's main rival. I talked about it in the preseason that Cam Talbot was a guy that 2 years ago in Minnesota had a great season. He backstopped that team into the playoffs. And then, as you mentioned, got replaced by Marc-Andre Fleury, who they picked up at the trade deadline. And then, in Ottawa last year, injuries and some issues playing in front of a bad team. But no, I'm not surprised to see Cam Talbot doing what he's doing. Now, he still has to keep it going. He's certainly in a great rhythm at the moment. But hopefully that'll be the case. As far as the Kings replacing the Sharks as the Golden Knights' main rival, and I guess maybe that would be argued by by some of the Vegas fans as far as who their main rival is. But they, as you mentioned, the Golden Knights and Sharks met in the playoffs a few times and had some heated battles, and rivalries are forged in the playoffs. And the Kings have not faced Vegas in the playoffs, or did they? I think they met them once and got swept. But anyway, if the Kings match up against Vegas in the playoffs and they have a big series, then yes, you could certainly see the Kings replacing San Jose or whoever the other team is as the rival for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think there's already that kind of a rivalry there between the two teams, kind of the proximity, big city LA against Vegas, the defending champs, that kind of thing. I think it kind of goes hand in hand there. All right. Thank you so much to everybody who emailed. Thank you to everyone who posted your comments on the YouTube episodes. Really appreciate all your feedback. And this show is literally not possible without you participating. So thank you guys very much for that. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday, we'll obviously recap hopefully a big home win for the Kings over the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll get you updated on all the news from the Kings over the weekend and probably have an Ontario rain report as well to get you caught up on what's going on with the Kings AHL affiliate. You want to send an email? You can do that at any time. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And as always, you can post your comments on the YouTube channel if you are watching on YouTube. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show by following us on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. And like I said, I'm going to be at the game against the Flyers on Saturday. So if anybody wants to meet up, let me know. You can send an email. You can reach out to me on Twitter, or well, I guess that's really the only two ways. I guess you could do it on Instagram too. I got to remember to check that. But looking forward to getting out there again at crypto.com arena and hopefully seeing the LA Kings get a much needed home victory. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings go.